So a few weeks ago, I released a video talking about my first impressions of the Sony a6700. It's a fantastic little camera and it is one of the most popular cameras at the moment for vlogging. And in that video, I did a little vlog test and a lot of people were asking what my setup was, what kind of lenses, what kind of filters, what audio, all that kind of stuff that I used for that video. So to build the kind of rig that I used for a vlogging setup for this camera, you're going to need a handful of things. The main things you're going to need are the camera, a lens, and audio. Those are the main, obviously, components that you're going to need for any good vlogging kind of setup. You can just hold a camera on its own and vlog like this, but we're going to add a couple of things that are going to make that a little easier. Everything that we're going to need is sitting on this table right now, and we're going to start putting it together. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take our small rig cage. Now, cages are not actually compulsory for this rig. I just find them helpful. I think they're pretty handy to use. If you don't use a cage, you're still going to need something like an Arca Swiss plate, and the small rig one has an Arca Swiss plate on the bottom already, so it's just kind of handy to use the one that's built into the cage. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our lens off, take the camera, and we're going to put the cage on. The nice thing about the small rig cage is it actually comes with two mounting screws. So you got a screw on the bottom, and that will that's the main one going into the 1/4-20 thread on the bottom of the camera. And the second one is a small little screw that goes into the strap clip, and that just gives it a little bit more security while you're attaching your camera. It means your cage is less likely to move around. And obviously it comes with a nice little tool that just allows you to attach all the things. You don't need to use any separate tools, and that just clips on to the bottom right there. So one of the most important things that you're going to need whenever you're putting this together is you're going to need a wide angle lens. Whenever you're filming a vlog, obviously you want it to be relatively wide. You want to be able to see. You don't want to be filming on a 50mm, so you're just looking at your face. So what I would recommend for an APS-C camera, the most zoomed in you're probably going to want is an 18mm, I would say. I'm actually going to be using the Sigma 16mm. The reason I'm going to be using this lens is, one, I think a lot of people have this lens. It's a very popular lens in general, just for use, and it's pretty wide. It gives you the full frame equivalent of 24mm. Now a lot of people are going to want to go wider to something like a 13 or maybe an 11mm. The Sony 11mm would be a great choice, or the Viltrox 13mm f1.4 is another great choice. Personally, I don't like ultra wide lenses, you know, that 11mm. I prefer a little bit closer. 16mm for me, that 24mm equivalent, is ideal. That's kind of like my favorite sort of focal length. You're still getting a very wide angle view without it feeling, you know, too distorted or too wide. I think the 13mm by Viltrox is going to be another great option. On full frame, usually the widest I've ever shot is about 20mm. A lot of people love to go wider. I just don't tend to. The only time I've ever gone wider is for astrophotography, which I've done once. Now it was fun, but I only did it once. So for me, the Sigma 16 is a fantastic choice, and you can find these used for really cheap. But if you're buying one new, I'd probably recommend going with Viltrox 13. Now what we're going to add to the camera is a filter. So whenever you're out walking around, you're going to want a variable ND filter. This one is by Freewell, and it is a mist and variable ND filter. I picked up the 82mm version with a step-up ring. So the step-up ring goes from 67mm, I believe, which is this lens's filter thread, up to 82. And having an 82mm just means that I can attach it to any lens that I want, just get different step-up rings, which is a whole lot cheaper than just buying a different filter for every lens. So we're going to go ahead and put that on. And honestly, this filter will give us quite a lot of the character that you might see in that video that we talked about. It really softens the highlights, it softens the skin tones because of that mist effect, or diffusion effect as it's called in a lot of things. So Tiffin Black Pro Mist, or the Moment Cinebloom, that's the one I've got on this camera right now, will do the same thing. It gives it nice sort of halation. You'll see on this light over here, it's got a nice sort of bloom around the edges, and it just makes skin tones nice and soft. So I love using them. So this filter, it's a 2-in-1. It's got the mist built in and the variable ND. So I've got the 2 to 5 stop on here. If it's a super bright day, you're going to want to use the other one, which is 6 to 9 stop. But whichever one you need for whatever you're filming, just put that on the front of your lens. So next, let's talk about audio. For audio, we're going to do something a little bit interesting. The main microphone that I love to use is this. This is the Rode Video NTG. I think it's a fantastic sounding microphone. It's got a dial on the back for controlling your audio gain. It's got a couple of buttons on here for different effects that you can add on. You can split the channel so it's louder on the left than it is on the right, so that you can, you know, use it as a safety track. It's got, you know, -20 decibel pads. It's got high cut and low pass filters, all that kind of stuff. Great little microphone. You can even USB this into a computer and use this straight into a computer. It's a really versatile microphone and I absolutely love it, so I'd highly recommend picking one of these up. It is more expensive, but if you're going to be spending this much on a camera and lens, you know, $1,500 to $2,000, you're going to want to spend at least a few hundred on good audio, because great video is great, but if it has terrible sounding audio, people are not going to watch anything that you're making, because it's really off-putting. So we're going to be using this. Now on the back of this I have a little connection here, and this is by Camera Foundry, or Caleb Pike with DSLR video shooter. It's a little 3D printed piece that attaches on the back, and it'll allow us to attach these, which are my Rode Wireless Go 2s onto the back, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But what we're going to do is we're going to use the cold shoe that is on the camera, not the one on the cage, but the one that's on the camera, and we're going to go ahead and just attach this microphone onto the camera body. So there we have that. So this is basically it. Now normally what you would do is you would run this directly into the camera. That's going to work great. The audio is going to be picking up right in front of you, no problems at all. But we're going to be doing something a little bit different for me that just worked really well in my testing, which is to use the Rode Wireless Go 2 system in tandem with this microphone. And what this allows us to do is to get two separate audio channels. Now also I have this case, this is by Sony, and it's like a charging case for the Rode Wireless Go 2. The Rode Wireless Go 2 is not the best wireless microphone kit in the world, but I think a lot of people have it. If you have the DJI one, or if you have the new Rode Wireless Pro, those are also going to work great. So we're going to take the receiver part and we're going to attach that onto the cold shoe that is on the camera cage, and attach it on there. And then what we're going to be doing is actually sending the audio from the microphone into one of the transmitters, which will send it to the left or right channel of the receiver. So if we take one of our transmitters here, this clips on directly to the back of this little piece by Camera Foundry, and it sits very nicely right there. So you've got your transmitter here in the back, and that's going to plug into the microphone. This microphone is sending its audio that it's recording into the Rode Wireless Go 2's transmitter, which is then sending it to the receiver. Now obviously that's not very far, it's sending it right there, and then that is going into one of the two channels, left or right. So we'll go ahead and we'll plug the receiver into the camera, obviously do a little bit of cable management. You don't really want this dangling around like that. So here we have an interesting setup. So what we're doing is we've got the microphone running into this transmitter, which is then sending it to the receiver, which is then sending it into the camera, which leaves us with one other transmitter. And what we can do with this transmitter is we can just plug this onto our shirt. So if I go ahead and just stick this here, this microphone is now acting as the other channel. So the camera is recording two separate channels, left and right. One of those channels is this microphone, and one of them is this. So you'll notice in my video, whenever I made the video talking about this and did a little bit of a vlog, there were times when I was walking with the camera right in front of me, and I was talking into it, and like this, at which point I was using this microphone, just isolating to the left channel, whichever one it was, talking into that microphone. There were other times whenever I was quite far away from the camera and I was talking into it from a distance, and that just meant that I could cut to this microphone. So depending on what type of shot I wanted, if I wanted to get the classic vlogging shot where I've got it right in front of me, I can use the shotgun microphone and just use that channel. Or if I wanted to be far away from the camera and sort of walk towards it or sit on a bench far away, I just use this channel, and that just gave me two options for audio. It also gives you a backup. So let's say this microphone was actually peaking because I had the level set way too high, I have a backup, or vice versa. Even a Rode Wireless Go, the original one, would work great because this basically acts as an isolated microphone. So if you're wanting to do a vlog where you have this setting far away and you're walking around, you can actually just take this and talk into it as if it's a microphone, and it's still going to send the audio directly to the camera, without having to worry about if it's picking you up from a distance. Microphones always work a lot better when you're closer to them. So this just gives you a lot of versatility. You could walk around and hold that like a normal microphone, or you could leave that on the camera and use the little lapel, whatever you want to do. The last piece we're going to be using is this. This is a switch pod. So what you've probably seen this before, it's a little tripod that sits nicely. I've attached a small rig ball head mount to the top. That just makes it easier to mount the camera on and off. But the lovely thing about this is it's got these little legs that fold together into a little handle like this, and they magnetically hold, which is always satisfying. Magnets are awesome. And this allows you to hold the camera out in front of you. And obviously with the ball head, we can then just sort of pivot and have the camera in whichever angle we want. And then if we don't want to be holding it, we want to set it on the ground and do our walking shot or our distance shot, we can just set it down and it works just fine. So I'm going to go ahead, I'll attach the camera on here. We're using the Arca Swiss plate that's built into the bottom of the cage, so that's pretty handy that that's already there. We'll have that set up like this. And here we have our vlogging setup. So I can walk around like this and talk into the camera very easily. It's not very heavy, it's very manageable, and use the audio from this microphone, because the audio from this microphone is a lot better than this one. So most of the time I'm using this one. But if I wanted to sort of set this down somewhere, like I did the other day, and set it on a rock, and then I sort of walk away and maybe walk towards the camera and talk to it as I'm walking, this just works great. And then the only other thing that you really need to do is put your timeline together and just add a nice color grade. One of the best things that you can do to make your videos look a lot better is, one, using good lenses with nice sort of filters that might increase the quality of your camera. Shooting in log is a great one, and then just add a color grade to it. Now, if you don't know how to color grade, I'm more than happy to put together a couple of videos about how to color grade, but I don't really have the time for that right now. So what I would encourage you to do is to hop over to Color Grading Central, which has a fantastic YouTube channel about how to color your footage, and they talk about DaVinci Resolve, Final Cut, and Premiere Pro. So whichever one you use, I definitely recommend checking them out, because that's how I learned a lot of my stuff. And they also have a lot of great LUTs that you can use to improve your footage. So that's about it. If you want to see the kind of image and audio that comes out of this camera, and the kind of setup that it can provide, go and check out that other video. I'm not going to really put that in this one, I'm not going to take it out, I really don't have a lot of time. So I'd encourage you to go check out that video and tell me what you think. Drop a comment down below, I want to hear your thoughts on this kind of setup. Do you think that the image and audio that came out of it is good? Do you like the dual audio setup where you can choose which channel you want to use? Or is it just a little bit overkill? I totally understand if you think it's overkill. For me, it just worked super well and I already had the parts. So I want to know your thoughts. If you've enjoyed this video, you're still watching, hit the like button, it really helps with engagement. Drop a comment down below, I want to hear your thoughts. And if you'd be willing to, I'd love it if you would hit the subscribe button as we continue to build this channel. I appreciate all of you for doing so, and I hope that you have a wonderful day.